All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are really getting into the nuts and bolts of let's call it a complex relationship dynamic. But here's the thing, we're not just going to talk about what it is. We're going to break down how it's supposed to work, according to the source material. We're talking about the detailed framework, the communication rules, everything that's supposedly essential for success.
So, what does it actually take to make something like this work? You might think it's all about fantasy, right? Well, according to what we've seen, it's not that at all. It's actually the opposite. It's about rigorous structure, super clear rules, and, you guessed it, a ton of emotional work.
You know, the best way to wrap your head around this is to stop thinking of it like a casual fling or some kind of affair. Instead, picture it as a detailed operating system, like for a computer, but for a relationship. And this system, it needs the kind of precision and rock-solid agreement you'd expect to see in a serious business partnership. Yeah, it's that intense.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First up, we're going to dig into the foundational conversations, the stuff that has to happen before anything else. Then, we'll look at how you turn all that talk into actual, concrete rules. From there, we'll check out the protocols for when things are, active. And finally, we'll get into the really tricky part, navigating all the emotional stuff that comes up.
All right, let's start right at the beginning. Section 1. This first phase is absolutely critical. It's all about deep, serious communication that happens before anything else. This is where you literally build the entire foundation.
And listen, we're not talking about a quick chat over dinner here. The source material describes this as a dedicated phase of, get this, brutally honest conversation. The whole point is to drag everything out into the open. The desires, the fears, the anxieties, all of it. And this is all happening way before a third person is even in the picture.
So, what do you talk about? Well, the source lays out some totally non-negotiable topics. For instance, both partners are supposed to write down their fantasies separately and then compare notes. They have to talk about sexual health histories, total transparency, and tackle existing insecurities head-on. There's even this really interesting idea of creating a shared living document, like a Google Doc or something, where you can both add thoughts and worries over time. It's all about building that communication muscle.
And here's the bottom line, the really crucial takeaway here. Skipping this incredibly intense groundwork, that's pointed to as the #1 reason these things fail. It's tempting to just jump in, right? But the warning is clear. Without this foundation, the whole thing is probably going to crumble under the first sign of pressure.
Okay, so once that foundation is laid, what's next? Well, we move into stage 2, which is all about building a formal architecture of rules. This is where all those abstract conversations and desires get translated into something concrete, actual, actionable guidelines. Now, consent here isn't just a one-time yes. It's way more complicated. The framework actually calls for a multi-level system. So level 1, both people in the main relationship have to genuinely want this. Level 2 is ongoing consent, the idea that anyone can hit the pause button or just stop the whole thing, at any time, no questions asked. And then there's level 3, session-specific consent. That means you agree on the rules for each individual encounter before it happens. And wow, this is where things get super, super detailed. The whole framework is broken down into these 5 key categories you see here. And this really forces people to go way beyond just saying something vague like, oh, just be safe. No, you have to define absolute specifics. We're talking everything from which physical acts are okay, to whether you can use real names, and even down to who's footing the bill for the hotel. This part is so important. The framework doesn't just list rules, it creates a hierarchy. Not all boundaries are created equal, right? You've got your firm limits. These are the absolute deal breakers. If one of these is crossed, the whole thing is over. Done. But then you have soft boundaries. These are more like strong preferences that might have a little wiggle room. And why is this distinction so important? Well, it stops every little hiccup from turning into a massive relationship-ending crisis. Okay, so the architecture is designed, the rules are written. Now we get to section 3, the protocols for when the arrangement is actually active. This is the system in motion. We're talking about everything from how you find a third person to how you communicate while it's happening.
So finding another person for this, it is not like swiping on a dating app, not at all. It's a really structured, multi-stage vetting process. The whole point is to minimize risk. It goes step by step. First, some online contact, then a phone or video call, and finally, a casual, no-pressure meeting in a public place. And all of this happens before anything remotely sexual is even on the table.
And of course, there are some really robust safety and risk management protocols. This is just non-negotiable. We're talking things like either partner having total veto power over anyone for any reason. Requiring recent STI test results is a must, and you even have to have a clear plan for what to do if something goes wrong, like a health scare.
Now, this is a big one. One of the key decisions you have to make is about communication during an encounter. As you can see, the approaches are polar opposites. Some couples want real-time updates, texts, photos, maybe even a video call. Others prefer total radio silence until it's all over. And the source is really clear here. There's no right or wrong answer. The only wrong answer is not deciding on one and setting that expectation in stone beforehand. Okay, so after it's over, there's another step that is framed as absolutely mandatory. It's not optional. It's the post-encounter debrief. This isn't just, so, how was it? It's a scheduled, structured conversation, and it's seen as a critical tool for processing emotions, maintaining the system, and really importantly, tweaking the rules based on what actually happened.
And that brings us to our final section. This is maybe the most complex, the most human part of this whole framework. How you manage the emotional realities over the long term. This is where the maintenance and management really kick in. This right here is a massive shift in thinking for most people. The framework just assumes jealousy is going to show up. It's not treated as a sign of failure or proof that this is a bad idea. Instead, it's treated like an expected data point. And because it's expected, you're supposed to have a pre-planned protocol for how to handle it, instead of just freaking out and improvising in the middle of a crisis.
So, you've got these two big emotional states on the spectrum. On the one hand, you have jealousy, which you have to learn to deal with constructively, but on the other hand, you have this thing called compersion. That's when you actually feel joy from seeing your partner happy with someone else. But here's the crucial thing the source points out. Managing jealousy is essential, but feeling compersion, that is not a requirement for this to work.
Look at that number, 1. It seems simple, but it represents a huge concept. That's how many people it takes to end the whole arrangement. The source is crystal clear on this. Consent has to be continuous. It has to be enthusiastic from both people. If just one person wants out for any reason at all, it's over. Done. Period. That unilateral power acts as this incredibly important safety valve, so nobody ever feels trapped. You know, according to this framework, a successful arrangement is never a set it and forget it kind of deal. It's not static. It has to be designed to evolve. That means you're scheduling regular check-ins, maybe once a year, to go over all the rules again. You have to accept that people change and their needs change with them. And you absolutely have to have explicit exit strategies for how to end the whole thing cleanly when or if that time comes. And this right here is maybe the single most important rule of all. The principle that holds the entire framework together. Think of it as the ultimate check and balance. The arrangement is supposed to serve the relationship. The relationship should never serve the arrangement. The second that flips, the source says something has gone fundamentally, deeply wrong. So in the end, how do you even define success here? It's probably not what you think. It's not about the number of encounters or about never feeling jealous. Nope. Success is measured by the health of the primary relationship. It all comes down to this. Do both people feel like they have dignity and autonomy? And has their connection with each other actually gotten stronger through all of this? So when you step back from it all, this framework, which is obviously for a very specific situation, leaves us with a really provocative question, doesn't it? If you just strip away the context for a second, what can this level of radical, brutally honest, structured communication teach all of us in any relationship about how to build trust, how to handle jealousy, and how to set real boundaries? Now that's something to chew on.